In this tutorial, we'll be talking about data validation for all the form elements that we have. We will be looking at the MVC Music Store application that we've created. Okay, so you can see that my screen here, in here some things I don't like are the field names, title, price, and album art URL. These are not field names that I want as they are not user friendly. Next, I'm going to be editing the first album and make the title blank. Unfortunately, I'm able to save this album. Can you see the blank title in the saved album? This is because we have not specified what fields are mandatory for the user to provide when editing or creating an album. We have to implement at least basic validation and capture fields that are important. Similarly, in create action also we are missing basic validation. We can resolve this by adding data validation to the model code using data annotations. By first including the namespace system.componentModel.dataAnnotations to the album.cs file in the model folder. To change the display names, I am going to add the display attribute for title, price, and album art URL. Please note that you need to add the attribute about the desired field for it to work. I want the display name for title to be album title. That's what I'm typing. Next, display name for price will be album price. And then I will add the display name for album art URL as album art URL with spaces in between for readability. Next, I want to make the album title and price as mandatory fields. I am going to do this by adding the required field attribute to these fields. Note that you can add multiple data annotation attributes to a single field. You can see that on the screen, the IntelliSense is showing all the parameters that we can provide for the required attribute. If you don't specify any parameter, this attribute will provide a default error message. If you want to change the error message, you can specify the custom error message in the error message parameter. Next, I want to set a range for my numeric data, which is the price. I can do this using the range attribute. It takes three parameters, the lower value, the upper value, and the error message. I'm setting the price to be between 1 cent and $100 and also adding a custom error message for the user to understand the error message. Next, I want to display the album price as a currency field with a dollar sign in front of the numeric value. For this, I will use the display format attribute. The first parameter is called apply format in edit mode. I am going to set this to false so that the dollar sign will only be used for display and not be stored with my numerical data. Since the default value for this parameter is false, I am not going to set it explicitly. Next, I am going to set the data format string so that it is set to currency, and you can see how the formatting is on the screen before you. I am going to rebuild the application and restart my website. To see the changes that I've made so far. As you can see, the new display names are showing up on the top of the page. For album 1, I am clicking on the details link. When I edit the album, I made the title blank and clicked on save. I get the error message that album title is required. Same happens for album price also. I get the required field message when I blank out album price. Next, I'm changing the album price to a value outside our valid range, say 1000. Now I'm getting the range error. I enter a valid value for title and price, my data gets saved. 。  . 。 Let's go back to the details. I can see now there's a dollar sign in front of my price. But when I go into the edit mode, the dollar sign disappears. So our display format is also working fine. The last attribute we are going to see is called as the bind attribute. It is not part of data annotation, but is a model binding attribute. It is in the system web MVC. So you need to include this namespace before using this attribute. Bind attribute determines whether to include or exclude a model fields from binding to the storage, which in our case is the database. There are two ways that we can use the bind attribute. First, let me show you how to do the bind exclude at the class level. Here I'm excluding album ID, which means album ID, even if I change it, will not make it to the database. Bind exclude will exclude the specified field from binding to the database. Bind include is another option. It will only include the specified fields and ignore the rest of the fields, even if they are presented to the user on screen. A good example for the bind include is in the auto-generated create action method and edit action method, as you can see in the screen. That here's where the fields are whitelisted. This is the recommended way as per security standards for anyone to code. Bind include is the better way where we specifically whitelist fields.